we honor our service members and remember their sacrifices made to defend honor, duty, and country. On this Veterans Day, we recognize the men and women and victims of all wars, and thank you for your courage and dedication that it takes to maintain our freedom and democracy. They are the true heroes. You are the true heroes, including you who are with us here today. I'd like to ask all service members and veterans who are here to stand. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for answering the call to duty. Our military families deserve just as much recognition for their sacrifices as they have lived through difficult times and often taken the heavy load to keep the home fires burning. I'd like to ask the family members of our active duty soldiers and veterans who are here to stand, please. Thank you. Please be seated. The service members we honor today came from all different walks of life, but they shared essential fundamental qualities: courage, pride, determination, selflessness, dedication to duty, and integrity. All are the qualities needed to serve a greater cause bigger than oneself. Our veterans were ordinary people who responded in extraordinary ways in extreme times. Today, our troops continue to make the ultimate sacrifices as they follow in the footprints and the footsteps of generations of brave Americans, their fathers, brothers, uncles, nephews, cousins, and have grown to include our mothers, sisters, aunts, and nieces. Veterans Day, originally called Armistice Day, was initially designated as a day to celebrate the end of World War I. A resolution was passed by Congress in 1926 for an annual observance, and it became a national holiday in 1938. Veterans Day is a time when people throughout the country gather together to remember those who have served our country, and TSU is honored to have this privilege to salute our heroes. Our program is just one small link in the endless chain that spans across the nation today and every day. It is a chain that binds us all together in life and in freedom. We thank you. We pray God's blessings upon each of you and your families. God bless our troops and God bless our country. Thank you.
Thank you, President Glover. We'll now have the occasion by one of our newest members of our TSU family, Lieutenant Colonel Nick Calloway. Please give him a hand.
Welcome to today's ceremony, and thank you for attending. I am Lieutenant Colonel Nick Calloway, and I'm honored to be speaking with you today on such an important occasion. We are here today to honor our service members, our heroes, to remember their achievements, their courage, and their dedication, and to say thank you for their sacrifices. As was mentioned, the service members we honor today came from all walks of life, and they shared several amazing qualities, all the qualities needed to serve a cause larger than themselves. However, there is one veteran I would like to specifically recognize: Tennessee State University and Detachment 790 alum, Lieutenant Colonel James Wesley Williams. Colonel Williams was born in 1944 in Memphis, Tennessee, and commissioned as a second lieutenant on March 20th, 1967. Colonel Williams had a distinguished military career that spanned over 28 years, but there is one portion of his career that I would like to highlight today. After graduating from navigator training in 1970 and follow-on training as an F-4 Phantom Weapons Systems Officer, Colonel Williams deployed overseas to Udon, Thailand in June of 1971 to fight in the Vietnam War. On May 20th, 1972, Colonel Williams was flying his 228th combat mission when he was shot down over North Vietnam. He was later captured and spent the next 10 months and 7 days as a prisoner of war in the Hanoi Hilton, a prison camp known for its harsh living conditions and unspeakable torture. A true hero and warrior, Colonel Williams endured and kept faith with his fellow prisoners until their eventual release in March of 1973. He is a 4-time recipient of the Distinguished Flying Cross, 2-time recipient of the Purple Heart, and 4-time recipient of the Meritorious Service Medal. Colonel Williams later described 2 of the happiest days of his life. The first was on March 28, 1973, when he boarded the C-141 Starlifter for the flight home from Vietnam. The other moment was when he finally saw his beautiful wife, Beatrice, and his 8-year-old son, James Jr., both of whom he had not heard from during the entire period of his captivity. Colonel Williams and his wife, Beatrice, were not able to join us today, but please join me in a round of applause as a thank you for their selfless service. Thank you all for attending today. God bless you and your families. God bless our troops, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Calloway. Since the beginning of the program, I want to mention or emphasize that we've heard from a number of students already who have been supportive of our program. The posting of the colors was conducted by our students. The national anthem that you heard, as indicated in the program, Gage Sharp rendered that selection as well. And now we will have a dramatic reading by Trey Gibson, a junior biology major.
My body was a mid-air somersault, but time stopped and seemed to collapse into itself. Earth became sky, clouds became ground. The day that the bomb blew, it turned my whole world upside down. My name is Trey Gibson. I'm a junior biology major here at Tennessee State University. And I, of course, want to first start off by thanking our veterans who have served this country, and I also like to thank our active servicemen. With that, I pay this poem tribute to our veterans. It's called Waiting for Someone by Lamar Jordan. Somewhere in the northwest region of Seattle, Washington, there's a homeless man, armed with a beer can, trying to drink away war memories, waiting for someone selfless enough to lend him an ear. He sits on the side of a pizzeria on the corner of Queen Anne and Mercer in a chair they'll probably kick him out of after business hours. His skin has grown all too fond of the concrete beds he must lay his head on. His body rocks back and forth, showing off to the world the only gift war veterans seem to ever receive. He addresses me. Hey, little bruh, can I get $1? And without even checking my pockets, I tell him that I ain't got it. Having anticipated this disappointment, he looks back at me and he says, "It's fine, because I really wanted a 50. Amazed, not that he still has his humor, but that the war left him with it. Before digging in my coat pockets, filled with a ton of change I probably would never use, he lets me know that more than a 20, really, all he wanted was a 75-cent donation. He lets me know that more than a 20, what he really wants is a conversation, and he takes my 75-cent donation as an invitation to start one. Without offering much space for me to converse, he lets me know that in this country, War veterans are rarely anything more than a patriotic fly on a wall, and that for all these people to ignore his requests is just as second nature as swatting at a pest. I guess none of them realize that here lie their tax dollars at work. His body jerks to the percussions of his bones, dancing to the sounds of post-traumatic stress syndrome. How wrong is it for humans to lack humanity, demanding he keep his lips locked, possess the audacity to ask him where he got his army cap from, as though it was a trinket you could just purchase at a gift shop? He tells me that they've labeled him as crazy. How long will this be the standard in this country? Where if the war doesn't kill you, they distill you, sending you back to just rot and mildew. The phrase "the war is not good for absolutely anything" is still true. Before he lets me go, he tells me that he doesn't know what to do. I see the tear-shaped white flag surrender from his eye, and I give him £1. And I tell him that I have to go, so I surrender the rest of my change, and I tell him I'm sorry. But there's a man in traffic yelling at me for this conversation to end. There's a woman across the street at the bar and grill waiting to have dinner, and there's a poem inside of me scratching at my soul, waiting to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Lieutenant Colonel Calloway will provide the introduction for our tribute speaker. So you'll hear from Lieutenant Calloway first, and then the next voice you'll hear will be that of Lieutenant Colonel House.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to introduce to you our guest speaker for today's ceremony, United States Army Lieutenant Colonel Bernard House. Colonel House is a native of Lexa, Arkansas, and graduated from the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff as a distinguished military graduate with a Bachelor of Science degree in accounting. He also holds a Master of Arts degree in management and leadership from Webster University. Over the course of his distinguished military career, Colonel House has served in many capacities throughout the country and the world, with assignments in both European and Pacific theaters. Colonel House has commanded soldiers at numerous levels and has been stationed and deployed overseas numerous times to Kosovo, Korea, Afghanistan, and Iraq. Colonel House wears the Combat Action Badge, the Army Staff Badge, and the Parachutist Badge. His decorations include the Bronze Star with 3 oak leaf clusters, the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, and the Meritorious Service Medal with silver leaf cluster. He is currently serving as the Field Artillery Branch Chief, Enlisted Personnel Management Directorate at Fort Knox, Kentucky. It is with great pleasure to introduce to you Lieutenant Colonel Bernard House.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Calloway, for the introduction. Thank you to Dr. Glenn Glover, Ms. Gwen Fowlin, and members of the Veterans Day Program Committee for the opportunity to speak here today. To the students who performed the dramatic reading and the national anthem, thank you for honoring this ceremony with such an outstanding performance. Thank you for all who came out today to honor our veterans and witness the opening of the Tennessee State University Veterans Student Center. Veterans Day, formerly known as Armistice Day, is a day we recognize all who have served and continue to serve our nation with honor and distinction. Armistice Day was established as a legal holiday to honor the ceasefire of World War I, which occurred on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, 1918. Today, on the anniversary of the ceasefire, the war to end all wars, we are gathered on the beautiful campus of Tennessee State University, not only to honor our veterans, but to also cut the ribbon on the Tennessee State University Veterans Student Center, a place that will assist our veterans as they transition from military service to an institution of higher learning. I think most of us have something in common. We either have served in the military, we are currently serving in the military, or we know somebody who has served or is currently serving in the military. I ask that all our veterans that can, please stand to be recognized. Those who cannot stand or already stand, please raise your hand. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a round of applause for our veterans. Thank you and your family for your service and sacrifice. For those of you who do not know somebody who has served in the military, currently serving in the military, I think you have missed out on some great war stories. Veterans tell the best war stories you ever heard. I think Vietnam veterans tell the best stories. I can sit for hours at a time and listen to stories of military action that are unique, but all have a common theme. That theme is honorable service to our nation. Vietnam veteran stories range from heroic actions in major battles such as the Battle of Adran, which is considered to be the first major engagement between the United States Army and the Vietnam People's Army. The Battle of Hamburger Hill was fought for 11 days, from May 10th through May 20th, 1969. The engagement was conducted on Hill 937, which was later renamed Hamburger Hill due to its grinding nature. Operation Rolling Thunder was a progressive and sustained aerial campaign carried out from March to November of 1968. The operation was the most intense battle conducted during the Cold War. These are just a few of the major operations, all of which, because of the determination and will of our military service member, we were victorious. Vietnam was a different kind of war. Unlike World War I and World War II, where thousands of troops and pieces of equipment defined a battle, Vietnam was defined by small skirmishes defined to trick the enemy. Military advisors had fought and died supporting the Vietnamese army for years prior to the start of major combat operations in the mid-1960s. Small six-man, well-armed reconnaissance team called Long Range Reconnaissance Patrol operated deep in enemy territories and were the eyes and ears of the units they served. These units were comprised of young men, some who volunteered, some who were drafted, but all who were dedicated to serving their nations. Soldiers like Specialist Ford Jack Moss Jr., a young man from Talladega County, Alabama, who was drafted to serve as a member of the 101st Airborne Division, 75th Infantry Long Range Reconnaissance Patrol, L Company. Specialist Ford Jack Moss began his tour in Vietnam in January 1970 and was killed by small arms fire on August 25, 1970. Specialist Ford Moss was 22 years old at the time of his death. Specialist Ford Moss and thousands of others are examples of the bravely exemplified by all men and women who served in Vietnam. The story of Specialist Ford Moss reminds me of the story of another soldier. Born in Arkansas, he was the father of a farmer. His father was a farmer and a deacon at the local church. His mother was a homemaker. His childhood was spent picking cotton and helping his father tend to the livestock. He was not from a wealthy family, but he was raised by parents who loved him. This young man worked on his parents' farm for many years, surrounded by his brothers and sisters, until he decided it was time to serve his nation. He would serve in the military for several years, to include a tour in Vietnam. Upon returning home, he hung a single award in his home. I still remember reading the citation as a young child. It stated, "This is to certify that the Secretary of the Army has awarded the Army Commendation Medal to Specialist 5, Artemus L. House, United States Army, for meritorious service in the Republic of Vietnam during the period of February 1968 to February 1969, given under my hand in the city of Washington on this 18th day of February 1969. Specialist 5 Artemus L. House was my father, a proud Vietnam veteran who served as an artilleryman with the 3rd Battalion, 6th Field Artillery Regiment, and the 2nd Battalion, 32nd Field Artillery Regiment. Today, on my uniform, I wear the Centaur, the symbol of the 6th Field Artillery Regiment, the regiment of which my father served in Vietnam, and also which I had the honor to command in Operation Iraqi Freedom. Like many Vietnam veterans, my father's service did not stop once he took off his military uniform. He came home and went to work as a police officer and a postal worker in the civilian workforce, continuing to help to build America. He rarely spoke of his experience in Vietnam, and it was not until after his death in 2006 that I was able to read more of his military documentation. My father and many other Vietnam veterans returned home to little fanfare, ceremonies, or the respect they deserved. Vietnam was not a popular war, but the legacy of the generation that served during this era and the courage and sacrifice makes them part of the greatest generation. Our Vietnam veterans continue to serve to this day, helping with items like the post 9/11 GI Bill so that our military service members could attend college, and they participate in every welcome home ceremony across the country for soldiers returning from deployment from Iraq and Afghanistan. At this time, I would like all our Vietnam veterans to please stand, as well as any family members that are attending of the approximately 1,600 Vietnam veterans still missing in action, and the over 58,000 that paid the ultimate sacrifice in combat. If you would, please stand at this time. Thank you for your service and your sacrifice to the nation. Today, Tennessee State University, a certified vets campus, will cut the ribbon and open its Veterans Center. A significant milestone for the university and our veterans. With thousands of soldiers transitioning out of the military annually, it is great to see the dedication by the university to ensure a smooth transition for our veterans. Veterans help connect the public with the military and inspire the next generation to serve. Thank you to the faculty and committee members for thinking of our veterans. As a nation and as a military, we must remain committed to taking care of our veterans. President Ronald Reagan said in a 1983 radio address, "Veterans know better than anyone else the price of freedom, for they have suffered the scars of war. We can offer them no better tribute than to protect what they have won for us." Our nation's veterans throughout our history have kept us free and continue to serve our nations in a multitude of ways. Today, we say thank you to them all. Thank you for inviting me here today, and happy Veterans Day to all.
It's time now for our wreath ceremony. We'll ask Lieutenant Colonel House, Lieutenant Colonel Calloway, President Glover, and Director Krause to move to my right for the wreath ceremony as taps is being played by Jonathan Neal and Curtis Olawumi. Dr. Love, will you also, in the midst of taking pictures, also join the wreath ceremony, please? You want me to try to? Thank you. You may be seated. We'll now have announcements by one of our students, Senior Engineering Major Cadet Jerry Kibbitt.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Tennessee State University would like to thank our special guest. On behalf of Mayor Cooper, Deputy Mayor Brenda Haywood, Lieutenant Colonel House and his family, Mr. William Jordan, a Vietnam veteran and a Purple Heart recipient, Major Shane Vickers, Vanderbilt ROTC instructor and supporter of the TSU Student Veteran Center, our friends from Nashville Electric Service and member of the Evan Williams Advisory Council, our partner organizations, Quilts of Valor, Tennessee State Council of Vietnam Veterans of America, Incorporated, Warrior Bonfire, retired Lieutenant Colonel Sharon Presley. We'd also like to thank the representatives from Tennessee Higher Education Commission, recruiters from the United States Air Force, Army, Navy, and Marines. Operation Stand Down Tennessee, Dress for Success, Nashville, CISA Teacher, the Veterans Division of the American Job Center. The TSU Student Veterans Organization will conduct its first meeting in the Students Veterans Center this Friday, November 15th at 3 p.m. Please stay and join us for the ribbon cutting ceremony for the opening of the TSU's Veteran Student Center, and perhaps we'll have a veteran group picture that will follow. Now we will have a special presentation by Mrs. Houghton from Quilts of Valor.
Got to get it all lined up. This is Joseph Hart, and he's the one to whom we are awarding this quilt. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Quilts of Valor, and might let him tell you a little bit. Thank you. Yeah, I'm short. The Quilts of Valor Foundation is a national organization founded in 2003 by a Blue Star mom. That means a mother whose child has been deployed. A Blue Star is a flag that we fly on our window. We wear them on our chests. We wear them, we hang them in our windows. We do all kinds of stuff with those. But that tells the world that I have a kid that has been deployed. And yes, I have a kid who has been deployed twice. Thank you very much. This lady named Catherine Roberts had a son deployed in Iraq at the time. A gunner sitting on top of a Humvee. How big is his target? She felt 10 seconds away from panic, as we all do, 24 hours a day. One night she dreamed of a post-deployment warrior struggling with his war demons at 2 o'clock in the morning. The next scene in her dream, she saw him sitting on the side of the bed with a quilt wrapped around him. The quilt comforted him and fended off the war demons that troubled him. From this vision, Quilts of Valor was born. Our foundation represents one human being reaching out and touching another without judgment, reaching out with acceptance and acknowledgement of service of our nation to very trying circumstances. Quilts of Valor recognizes and acknowledges the warm demons that plague soldiers from all wars. Thousands of quilters from all over the world work daily to create quilts to cover warriors from all conflicts. World War II, World War I also, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and as my son says, places I can't tell you about. This quilt brings a three-part message from our hearts. First, we honor you for our service. We're honoring him today, but all of you who have served. We honor you for leaving all you hold dear and stand in harm's way in a time of crisis, protecting us from the effects of war. Next, our quilters know that freedom is not free. The cost of our freedom is the dedication of lives of men and women like you, and it is a quilt meant to say thank you for your service. And finally, this quilt is meant to offer comfort to you and to remind you that although your family and friends cannot be with you at all times, you are forever in our thoughts and our hearts. The Quilt of Valor is not to be thought of as a charity quilt. It is not a blanket or something that the dog sleeps on, although we do make them for dogs. The top of the quilt has many layers. Oh, there's 3 layers to a quilt. The top of the quilt has many colors, shapes, and fabrics, and it represents the communities and the many individuals that we are. The batting, the inside of the quilt, is our hope that the quilt will bring warmth, comfort, peace, and healing to the individual that receives it. The backing is the strength that supports the other layers. It represents the strength of the recipient, the support of his or her family, our communities, and our nation. And then there's a whole bunch of stitches that hold the whole thing together with love, gratitude, sometimes tears of the makers. Yes, we cry. I told him I wasn't gonna cry, but here I go. Each quilt of valor is formed by loving hands and joins bits of fabric, one piece at a time. A quilt of valor may be fashioned up by only one or two individuals, or it may come about with many people combining their efforts.